On today's episode of the Hustle the Day podcast, I interview Sebastian Hovv, who has taken his years of SEO experience and created a tool to do it yourself. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hustle the Day podcast. My name is Trent, and I am very fortunate to have Sebastian Hovv here with me today. Sebastian is the owner of SelfSEO, and I want him to talk to you a little bit about his version of hustling and owning a small business. So, Sebastian, why don't you jump in here, give us a little introduction about who you are.
Thanks for the opportunity, Trent. Really appreciate it, man. So my name is Sebastian Hovv. From Los Angeles, California, specifically Glendale. I started as an entrepreneur when I was around 16 years old, got into starting my own websites. And then from there, I kind of just progressed into marketing and then stumbled across SEO and never looked back. It's been about 13, 14 years now. And yeah, just loving the grind, loving entrepreneurship. And I can see myself doing this for the rest of my life, pretty much.
That's awesome. That's good to know that you can see yourself doing this even after 13, 14 years, doing it the rest of your life. And we talked a little bit before we started recording. We have, a similar start. I started doing web design when I was 14, and it's cool to see that you kept going down that path where I've jumped all over the place. It probably would have been more beneficial for me to keep going down that path.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of shiny ball syndrome, and I think we're all kind of susceptible to it. But it's just once you find that one path that you can really excel at and you really enjoy, I think go with 100% on that and forget about everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely have that shiny object syndrome because I can jump around to too many things. But fortunately, the one thing that I've always been passionate about is entrepreneurship. And so it's great to be able to interview other entrepreneurs on here and see what makes them tick and get their stories. So I appreciate again that you're here and sharing your story.
Yeah, man, love meeting entrepreneurs, and we're all over the world now. It's just insane how much it's really grown. And I think a lot of that has to do with some popular figures, some shady figures. But I think in the end, as long as they're promoting entrepreneurship, then it's a good thing because, we're kind of a lonely race out there. And it's hard to really help each other out without enabling each other in a way where we want to give each other stuff. And I think if we just learn the lessons, and that's the best thing we can do, just give each other the lessons that we've learned, and then we can all become better for it.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. It can feel like a lonely island at times, but there is definitely a support network out there if you are willing to reach out and talk to those people. Like you mentioned, it's worldwide. I've got 2 recordings this week, one from somebody in Bali, one from somebody in Australia. And so, I mean, it's definitely worldwide, and it's great to make the world smaller by, these podcasts.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk to you about who was the most influential person on who you became today.
Oh, man. Specifically in entrepreneurship, or are you talking like
just personal, business, whatever it is? Who has influenced Sebastian to become who Sebastian is today?
Oh, man. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a cop-out, but, I kind of grew up religious. So probably Jesus. And then, those things you learn when you're a kid, it kind of just sticks with you. And so a lot of the stuff, even though I'm not as religious as I once was, kind of those principles still kind of stuck in me. So it's just about being a good person and like loving people, trying to lead with love, and like giving people the benefit of the doubt, forgiving them. Especially when they're going to screw you over at some point in your life, you just need to forgive them or pre-forgive them and make sure that your relationship is bigger than whatever problem that is. So yeah, man, if I probably have to say Jesus, but I know that's probably like something you get a lot.
Oh, I don't consider it a cop-out because that's who is most influential on you. So that's absolutely the correct answer if that's what if that's who's been most influential on you. But I like that you touched on the fact that people are going to screw you over. But you can't dwell on that. You can't let that eat you up. So that's great that you have that attitude and that you're willing to forgive those people because it's part of entrepreneurship. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, you obviously want to keep your circle to the right type of people, but sometimes other people infiltrate that. So,
Yeah, of course. I think it's just life, man, you know? And I think, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk, he says it a lot. He's like, don't feel bad for these people. Don't like be angry at these people. It's just that they lack some perspective. So it's just about, you know, empathy. So that's,
mhm.
I think, yeah, if I had to pick a second person, probably Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk has definitely been a big influence on my entrepreneurship journey as well. So I definitely understand that.
Mhm.
Uh, so how is it that you ended up becoming an entrepreneur? How is it that you started your own business?
Yeah, man. I can't even remember how I came across this page one day, but it was I landed on this ClickBank sales page, and it was about this ebook about this guy who makes, you know, these millions of dollars. I still don't know if it's true or not, but he said, you know, I make millions of dollars, and I do like X, Y, Z. I don't do much. Just buy my ebook. It's $47, and I was like in my teenage years at that time, so I didn't have the money. So I somehow found a way to get his PDF ebook. I think I used some of those. It wasn't torrent wasn't big back then, but I think I used those P2P file sharing
Hmm.
services like Morpheus or Kazam or something like that.
Yeah,
And I got a hold of it somehow. It was like it's only 50 pages, but honestly, it did change my life in a big way. I learned about what this guy was doing. It was basically entrepreneurship 1.0, and just some of these tactics were pretty shady, but like it kind of got me into the idea that okay, I can actually do this. Like this guy's doing it, I can do it too. Just get a website up and start doing X, Y, Z. There's affiliate marketing here. What a drop shipping, all these new ideas I'd never even heard of, and that kind of just sparked my brain. And I'm like, you know, I can do this. I can take control instead of, you know, I wasn't doing that well in school. I'm like, okay, this is like the alternative route. I didn't know about trade school or anything like that. So this kind of seemed like the only legitimate path or way out. And I'm like, okay, this sounds more like me. And then it kind of just, that's just kind of how it started. And it's been that way ever since. Like the path has, you know, obviously changed. You know, you fail here, you fail there. So your path becomes, it's not like one straight road. It's like a rocky road that goes left and right and center and all around. But that's the journey, and I'm grateful for it, and I don't regret it at all.
that's great. Yeah, it's interesting that some of those things that seem elementary to us now, at the time, I mean, they were mind blowing ideas to you. So that's cool that you were able to see that and see the different opportunities that really are out there. And you mentioned, you dabbled in some other things along the way, like Amazon FBA and
Mhm.
uh, some of those other things that are great opportunities, but definitely require a lot of work. But you've definitely gone down that SEO path and you've committed to it, and that's great.
Mhm.
So a lot of people don't understand how much work really goes into this, and how much work it takes to become an expert. So how much time do you think you've devoted to SEO?
Oh man, SEO. Honestly, like you ask 100 people, 100 SEOs about what is SEO, you get 100 different answers. It's
Yeah.
essentially getting your website up on search engines. You know, optimizing it for search engine visibility is the quickest and easiest way I can answer it. But I mean, it all started with, you know, my own websites. And then to be honest, you can read a lot of books about it. Like I did write a book about it, but it's just the fundamentals. After that, you really just need to experiment yourself and see what works because the algorithms are changing every day. So you're not going to get somebody who's the number one expert all the time. Things are always, it's an ever-changing landscape pretty much. So who's an expert today is not going to be an expert tomorrow if they don't keep up with it. If they're not making their own websites or their client websites, they're not experimenting, they're not trying to do new things all the time, trying to kind of break their websites to see what what the search engines respond to the most, then they're not really doing SEO. So SEO is kind of like this ongoing thing. It's like once you stop doing it, then you're not an SEO anymore because you've lost that touch. So it doesn't take much to get back into it. But yeah, it's just all about keep experimenting, keep trying out new things and see what the search engines respond to. And that's how you're helping yourself and your clients out if you have any.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that you mentioned that you always have to be experimenting, always trying things. A lot of people who, once they get to a certain level, they just kind of rest on their laurels. Oh, I know this works. I'm just going to keep churning this out because I know it works. But like you mentioned, the landscape is changing daily.
Yeah.
uh,
What works today is not going to work tomorrow, and we find that out every time they do an algorithm update, or they target these kind of websites. Health websites just recently got hit because or the finance websites got hit as well because it's important now. They only look at experts and trusted sources. So even if you did have like some shady website up there and it was doing really well, it's not going to do well anymore. So you have to it's like an ongoing process. You can't just like you said, rest on your laurels because you're going to be buried by the competition sooner or later.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned that you're experimenting, and whenever you experiment, you are going to inevitably come up with some failures. What would you say has been your biggest failure in the entrepreneurship journey, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that, even when you fail, you can kind of still recover. So a lot of stuff you just end up losing a lot of time and money on. You don't really get penalized like people get afraid of. A lot of webmasters think, oh, am I going to get penalized if I do this thing or that thing? Worst case is that those efforts are going to be discounted. So you lost money and you lost time. So if you try to build like what do they call it? The PBNs, the private blog networks is one thing. Kind of shady, still kind of works, but eventually, search engines don't like it. They're going to try and phase it out. So you might as well not do it. But stuff like that, people have invested thousands into those things. They've bought portfolios of PBNs, or they're buying links, of course. And they're not going to get penalized for those things, but it's not going to be as effective or effective at all. So it's like you spend thousands of dollars when you could have spent that money elsewhere. You could have spent it on hiring somebody who's going to produce great content, and that's going to last, for a long time, much longer than these little tactics that you're trying. So I guess the lesson here is that stop trying to chase the algorithm and stop spending your time and money on things that, they might pay off in the short term. But if you're in this for the long term, please don't do those kind of tactics because it's only going to end up hurting yourself. And you're going to basically giving the competition a leg up because now they know that you're behind on your resources. Now they can invest in worthy things like, good content, things that users actually want to see. So it doesn't make sense either way for you to try those kind of things unless you're doing it on some website and you have some budget, you don't care about the money and you're just experimenting. Then, okay, that's fine. That's like your R&D budget. But for those of us entrepreneurs, who really, we can't be wasting our money like that, then always do the right thing the first time around.
Absolutely. It kind of comes back to the fundamentals. As long as you've got, a quick loading website that you're putting out consistent, unique content. I mean, some of those basic things, and, you can tweak the algorithm for, word count or something like that. But, it really it comes back down to the fundamentals is the long-term win, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, word count, all those stupid things like above the fold or like, it has to load under like 2 seconds. And it's just, there's no metric like that. Those are good. They might be good guidelines, but yeah, it's going to change tomorrow anyway. So just do what the users would want to see. It's like make a website for users, not search engines. That's the golden rule. Make it for like your mom. Like if your mom would have a good experience on this website, then everyone will have a good experience on this website.
That's a good way of putting it. Make a website that somebody wants to use, not a website for Google. Yeah, I like that. So with so much emphasis right now on social media, how important is SEO right now?
Yeah, SEO is seen as like just another channel. And in a lot of ways it is, but in a lot of ways you have more control with SEO than you do with those social channels. As we see, some people are losing their YouTube accounts, they're getting strikes. Twitter is like, I don't know, silencing some people, shadow banning people, whatever. You don't have full control over any of those platforms. But SEO, even though people say, oh, well, then Google has more control. Yes, that's true, but you still have more control than those other things. There's no real person there that's actually monitoring your website. It's just an algorithm. So as long as you're doing the right thing, you're not really going to get penalized or taken down or like banned or anything like that. So you do have more control in that sense. So obviously you've got that, you've got your email list, things like that, that only SEO can really provide a good foundation for your business, and something that you want to do long term. So social media websites, they're going to go down. Like we see a lot of, like Vine went down, and what else? MySpace, Bebo, all these things. So if you're building your business on these platforms, while it's still a good idea, I wouldn't focus 100% on that. You want to diversify your efforts. You want to be on every platform, but you want to look at SEO as the foundation of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, those things every day, a social media network is at risk of going down, or even ones that are still strong right now, like Instagram or TikTok. What if their servers go down? What if something happens during the middle of the day and you've got scheduled posts, you're supposed to be launching something right then, and you're at the mercy of them? Whereas you can understand that you've got redundant servers and things for your website. And so, I mean, I understand, SEO definitely has its place and still has its importance, even in the social media landscape.
Yeah, exactly.
So the question is, what is your company, SelfSEO? Tell me a little bit about that and what you do.
Sure. So a few years ago, after doing SEO for other companies, we had our own agency. And so we were just doing consulting and, the regular SEO stuff for clients. But we found very quickly that a lot of people, either we were turning them away because they didn't have the budget for our rates, or for some reason they just didn't meet our requirements. And so we kept disappointing them by turning them away. And then, they'd eventually they'd invest in other shady stuff, like these local companies, these lead gen companies, and they were just basically blowing their money on PPC and just stuff that they didn't really know about. And so we're like, we have to have some sort of solution for these smaller businesses that don't have the budget for us, but they still want to invest in SEO, and they're doing the right thing by looking at SEO as a viable channel for their business. So what can we do here? And we looked around and we couldn't really find any solution for them. And so we thought, okay, would some kind of AI robot that could guide them along the way when they were just doing their SEO, that this thing would tell them, okay, you've done this, now do X, now do Y, now do Z. So kind of like we call it a DIY platform for SEO. So it's basically just you logging in and your website's already there. It's kind of, there are SEO tools out there. This is kind of like that, but we tell you what to do and how to do it and why it's important. And once you've done that, what to do next. So it's kind of like a hold you by the hand kind of solution for small businesses that want to invest in SEO but don't have the budget for an actual full-scale agency. This is what a SelfSEO is for them.
Okay, so just so I understand a little bit more, it is SelfSEO hosts the website and then just guides you through the process, or can this be used with another user's website?
Yeah, it's not. We don't host the website.
Okay.
It's just it's basically a tool where they enter in their website, and then it kind of has like a profile for their website, and it analyzes their website obviously, and then it tells them, okay, you've done this, good, now do this, now. It's kind of like a to-do list, but an auto AI generated to-do list, and it will look at your website and make sure you're doing everything right, and then it will tell you what to do next and how to do it and why it's important, and then it will analyze it and check your rankings. And it's basically, if you've used any of those SEO tools, it's basically like that with like a human touch or like a guide that tells you what to do along the way.
Yeah, I like that it's self-guided in a way that you can follow along with it at your own pace, but then you've always got someone there to help you with the next step. And I like that you mentioned it explains why it's important. A lot of people, I'm guilty of this myself, but I'll tell somebody, hey, you need to be working on this, and didn't explain why. So to them, they're not invested in it because they don't have the explanation behind it. So that's actually really smart on your part.
Thanks. Yeah, man. We realized even when we were consulting with clients that we told them to do this, and they didn't, because they didn't know why we telling them to do that. they would just think, oh, okay, it's just one more thing. We can do that later. But once you explain why it's important and how much benefit they can see in their business, either revenue or traffic wise, then it makes a lot more sense for them to be like, okay, this is the best use of my time. I'm going to get a good ROI here. So best I do it or tell someone in my staff to do it. The important thing is that it gets done. And so, yeah, explaining to them, like, it just shoots up the action rate a lot higher.
Okay. Then I really appreciate that. So you've gone down this journey. Is SEO something you have been passionate about that has made you stick with it for all this time?
Yeah, man. I got into it honestly because I didn't have the money to invest in PPC or email marketing and all that. But yeah, once I got into it, and once you see results, it's kind of like going to the gym. You don't like doing it at first, but then once you start seeing some results, you kind of get hooked onto it, and you're like, okay, now what else can I do with this? And then it just goes from there. It's like I've been doing it for this long. Like, I really like to see the evolution, like watching the evolution right in front of your eyes. It kind of makes you like part of something bigger than yourself. And then you've got the SEO community on Twitter. Then there's like Slack channels and the forums. So once you like kind of get ensconced in it, it's kind of like you this is your life, and you don't really know any other life beyond this one. So you wouldn't know what to do. It's kind of like your identity is tied to it. So it's in that way, like, yeah, you love it, and you don't really know what else you would do without it, kind of thing.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that you related it to the gym, because I feel like SEO and the gym have a lot of parallels, because SEO is not a quick fix. It's not something that you see results the next day in most cases. So it is something that you have to keep working on. You have to keep, being up to date on things. And whereas with the gym, you're not going to see results tomorrow from what you did today. It's got to take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. And then when you see those results, man, it's amazing. Like you said.
Yeah, I mean, the gym. That's a great analogy. Yeah, for SEO and for life. It's like you can't take shortcuts, and you can't outsource it. You can't tell someone else to lift the weights for you. It's like you have to do it, and everyone's gonna see whether you do it or not, because the results will show. And you can take the shortcuts, you can do the steroids and all that, but it's not sustainable, and people are gonna know. So it's it's kind of like the perfect analogy for life and entrepreneurship is like going to the gym and doing these things, putting in the reps, and over the long haul, you'll see the results, and everyone will see it as well. You can't fake it, and yeah, it's a perfect way to live life, because you're going to benefit, and everyone else is going to benefit as well.
Absolutely. That actually brings me to another question I want to ask you, jumping a little bit, but so what's one thing somebody starting a business today, what should they be doing to create those reps? What are those reps that they should be doing today?
Yeah, I think really building a brand. I know Gary Vaynerchuk says it a lot. Your personal brand matters. People don't like to attach their personality to it, but I think it's really important now. Is that people want to know who the person is behind the brand. And we watch Shark Tank, and then you get emotional because you hear their story, and now you want to invest in their business, even though it could be a similar business to 100,000 other businesses out there. A lot of like insurance. It's a commodity, right? But people want to buy insurance from people that they know and they like and they trust. There's like all these networking groups now, BNI and all that. It's just a bunch of guys who sell credit card processing, insurance, car sales, things you can get anywhere, but people want to buy it from local people that they know. So it's kind of like you have to really start with yourself, put yourself out there, and like tell people your story. And then from there, you can like be like, okay, I'm selling this thing today, and I might switch to selling this thing tomorrow. And it's kind of like a good way to mitigate your risk. It's like, okay, I was selling this supplement today. That supplement industry, I don't know, for some reason got regulated, or it bombed, or turned out it wasn't as good as the evidence was showing it to be. But now I'm selling this thing, and I made a mistake, and here's whatever. And people who are invested in you are gonna, they're gonna buy that product too. But if you're just building up that whole industry and that brand on that one product or that one, solution, whatever, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to switch over. So I think the foundation is building your own personal brand and then going from there.
Absolutely. I entirely agree with that. And that's honestly something I've personally struggled with, because, I'm the type of person that I care too much about what people think of me. So I struggle showing my personality out there. So I needed to hear that as much as, some of the audience may need to hear that. But it is absolutely true. Like you said, if something happens, you're working on one thing and it goes by the wayside, well, they're still going to be following you. They're still going to be invested in you. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So in this SEO journey, it's actually led to some other things. Like you mentioned, you've written a book. You've started doing some speaking gigs. Tell me a little bit about that transition from, becoming an expert to teaching.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of came naturally. A lot of people started asking me, what did you do? How did you get started? What is SEO? There's all these courses I can take. They're thousands of dollars. One course is $500 just for the basics of SEO. And I was like, you don't really need a course. The fundamentals are pretty easy to learn if you just, uh, you read these blog posts or read this one article. And kind of, I was like, okay, it might be easier for me to just compile this all into one resource. So that's kind of what I did. I just kind of took my own knowledge, and then, took a little bit from here, a little bit from there, the best of what, the SEO world had to offer, and put it into this little book that anybody can pick up and understand it. And then, it's only like 120 pages, so it's not long, but it's everything you really need to know about the basics of SEO, what it was, where it is now, and where it's going, and what you can do to, get started in this field. And there's also a glossary in there for there's a lot of jargon that SEO people use, and it's not their fault. It's just every industry has it. So there's a glossary in the back, so you'll learn the lingo as well. And it's, in my opinion, it's like the best thing for somebody who doesn't know SEO to pick up and be able to say, okay, now I understand what SEO is, and I'm going to get started tomorrow.
Very cool. And like you mentioned, you're more focused on the fundamentals. So if you write a book about the fundamentals, well, then it's going to be relevant no matter what the algorithm changes are. So that's good.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not going to write something about advanced SEO, which is going to change tomorrow. It's like you have to change that book every day then. So get the fundamentals right, then and I don't mind doing it, but you don't really need to, because the fundamentals are the same.
Yeah. And that's cool. That's led into other things, like you mentioned, speaking as well on your website that you've gotten into now, which is pretty cool. It's a way of people recognizing that you are becoming this expert, or you are this expert in this field.
Yeah, I'm like, I wasn't trying to be one, but it kind of just comes with the territory. It's like you're doing it for so long that people just naturally start asking you questions, and then they get value out of it. They want to help you. They're like, okay, I'm going to be at this thing, or they're looking for this guy for SEO. So why don't you come? It's kind of just like it happens by osmosis. You're not out there trying to pitch for people. They're like, hey, let me let me pitch my product to all these people. Like, let me get speaking is the my foot in the door. That's kind of not how most speakers even get started, because number one, people see through that, and number two, you're not a real expert. Then if that's what you're trying to do, then you don't really care about the craft as much as you care about slinging your product. So those kind of people, they don't last long anyway. So it's not a sustainable route.
Yeah, it is. I like that you said that. It's not sustainable. It is something that may work for a short time, but the great thing about the internet and its and how much transparency it provides is that people can see through that pretty quickly, whereas people could make careers off of it before.
Yeah, luckily with the internet, things are becoming more transparent, so no one can really get away with stuff like that for long, which I'm really grateful for. A lot of gurus are being exposed, and I think that's a very good thing, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So because this is the Hustle the Day podcast, I want to ask you how you would personally define the word hustle.
I think consistency, man. Just being consistent, putting in the work, putting in the reps, like we mentioned, just doing it every day. And there's going to be tough days, but honestly, most of the days are going to be just average. Some days are going to be good, some days are going to be bad. But as long as you stay consistent, no one you know that was successful wasn't consistent. So I think hustle is just another word for longevity and consistency, hard work, discipline, all those things wrapped up into one. And, the ones who think it's something else, they won't be around for the next iteration of what it means then. So yeah, that would be my personal definition for it. Be interesting to know what yours is, considering you build a whole brand around it.
Well, honestly, I don't know if I could personally define it, because every time I interview someone, I get a different answer, and I love all the answers. So it honestly becomes whatever the last version that I've heard, because consistency is absolutely correct. It is something that you need to always be going at it, always going towards that goal that you have, because if you don't, then it's easy to get distracted, or like we talked about earlier, the shiny object syndrome. If you're not focused on something and consistently attacking it, then you're never going to achieve it.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that definition. One last question I want to ask you is, what is it that excites you about the future? And that doesn't necessarily have to be business related. What is it that excites you right now about the future?
Oh man, kind of, to be honest, I wish I was born like 50 years from now, because I want to see, what technology, what it's done. In the last 20 years, we've seen what the internet has done for the entire world, and it's insane. And I really can't believe it. It was only 2001 when we got the internet, and it's been 18 years, and like we've gone from that into iPhones and AI and augmented reality and VR. Like I love that, technology, knowledge, all that kind of the robots, like we've got AI powering our business right now, which I never would have expected, even like 2 years ago or 5 years ago. It's just insane. So, I mean, hopefully, like, they have, like Gary Vaynerchuk says, there's that drug that will make us live forever. Like, I would love for that to happen, because I'm always excited to see what's happening next, especially in entrepreneurship. It's just, yeah, it's just like this what's it called, this thirst for knowledge, I guess, is, I know it's a bit shady to say it that way, but like, yeah, like just finding out what else we're going to do, what else the human race is going to be capable of. They got the self-driving cars with Teslas. These are things that I could never have imagined when I was a kid. And so to see how far we've come in such a short amount of time, like, man, I can't even explain where I want to see humanity, or where it's going to be, and how I can contribute to that in any which way. I'm not as smart as those guys, but I want to be there for that and contribute to it in any which way that I can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic response to that, because I'm so focused on the now. It's hard to think, oh man, 50 years, what is it going to be like? And that's hard to fathom, just with how much growth we've had. And like you mentioned with the cars are honestly my passion. And I would have never guessed, back in 2001, that we'd have self-driving cars at this point in time. And so it's amazing to think of what the future holds. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
So I want to give you some time to shout out any particular people, where people can find you, what the best means of contacting you is.
I'm most active on Twitter. So it's just twitter.com/Sebastian Hovv. So it's Sebastian and HOVV. I just share interesting articles that I found weekly, or talk about SEO, and like if I write a blog article or anything, I post it up there. Happy to connect with anybody. Anyone who has any questions, my DMs are open. Happy to talk about anything like entrepreneurship. I'm on a few entrepreneurship forums as well. I read a lot of books. So if you guys want to talk about books and YouTube channels and all that, like I just love learning more and more, because I know that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Usually I'm not. So man, I love talking about business, entrepreneurship, and anything else you want to chat about. I'm open on Twitter. That's the best place to catch me.
Okay, well, that's great. I'll include links in the show description to your Twitter. But like you said, you're not the smartest person in the room, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Is you're supposed to learn from those who are levels ahead of you, and so that's a great way to be.
Yeah, man, of course. And yeah, man, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, man. I think you're doing a great thing. And yeah, I only wish for the best. And I can't wait to see how far the podcast comes in like a year and 2 years and 3 years from now.
Well, I really appreciate that. I've definitely been enjoying it, and I love learning from other entrepreneurs. You know, I realize every time I do these things that um, I need to elevate my game to Sebastian's level now. So I appreciate that you took the time out of your day to talk to me, and I'm grateful that we were able to connect, and we'll continue to connect after this. And it sounds like we need to be exchanging the books we're reading and keep up on that. So.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Trent, man. It's always great talking to other entrepreneurs, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So for everybody that was listening today, I know you got value out of this because I definitely got value out of this. So I want you to take this value and get out there and hustle the day. Thanks for listening to the Hustle the Day podcast all the way through. I really appreciate that. I just want to let you know that I help small businesses with their online strategy. So if you or anyone that you know needs help with their online strategy and owns a small business, I'm your guy. Go ahead and connect with me at Trent V Bray on Instagram or TrentVBray.com.